Okay. And we're going to be on Unit 1, Lesson 10. Draw conclusions. Okay, well, mine's, oh, there it is. Sometimes it pops up weird. And a lot of continuing to build on what we've learned. Drawing conclusions is a lot like, finding the main idea in a passage that we've dealt with. And what we're going to use, as it shows here, to complete the lesson, we're using inferences to draw conclusions, cause and effect to draw conclusions, compare and contrast to draw conclusions, and categorize to draw conclusions. So you see, we're getting towards the end of the unit, and we're taking those lessons that we've already learned and combining them to sort of broaden our knowledge and broaden our skill set into drawing more in-depth and broader conclusions about reading a passage, rather than just like, what's the main idea of this sentence or what's the main idea of this paragraph. So let's take a look. We'll have text here, some audio, a short one. Here we go.
Drawing conclusions is similar to making inferences. As you know, an inference is an educated guess based on facts or evidence and on your own prior knowledge. By combining several inferences to make a judgment, you can draw conclusions. Determining a cause and its effect, categorizing, and comparing and contrasting also can help you draw conclusions.
Yep, so it's pretty straightforward, right? We've already sort of encountered all of the tools that we need to sort of take it to the next level and start drawing conclusions. And for our text here, always remember, right? Look at the title. So it says gasoline taxes and prices. So Americans pay an average 49 cents per gallon in gasoline taxes, according to the Lundberg survey released last week. That includes federal, state, and local charges. Canadians pay more than double that amount, $1.26 per gallon, and up it goes, with the Dutch among the most taxed. They are paying $5.57 per gallon this month, according to the survey, for a total pump price of $10.05 per gallon. Gas taxes are used to encourage conservation, to finance roads and transit, and to fill other government coffers. High rates tend to insulate drivers from price spikes. On a percentage basis, Europeans have had to absorb far smaller increases in gas costs than Americans in recent years. They're used to paying double what Americans do or more, and they live accordingly. On Friday, the price of oil traded above $142, a new record suggesting that more increases at the pump are coming. And this was taken from the New York Times article, Savoring Bargains at the American Pump by Bill Marsh. And if you look at the high gas prices there, kind of dealing with some right now, but back in 2008, they were pretty crazy. So always keep in mind, the dates and things like that for context when you're reading. And so over here, our underlying passage, it says the text points out that Americans pay three kinds of taxes. Finding explanations for facts within the text can help you draw conclusions. Right. So, why do we pay 49 cents per gallon in gasoline and taxes? And also, it includes federal, state, and local charges. And then B, the last paragraph presents facts about the price of oil rather than gas taxes. So this paragraph supports a conclusion that is different from the conclusion in the first paragraph. So that's something to also take note, right? Your ideas are going to start getting more complex. So up here, we're talking about taxes. So, Americans pay this much in taxes on gas, right? But, well, we're also seeing the price of oil traded above $142, which is a new record. And that's suggesting that more increases at the pump are coming. So it's twofold, right? We have taxes that are going to, have an effect on gas prices at the pump, and of course the price of oil per barrel, which is also going to have a price an effect. Okay, so let's move over to our quiz. Lesson 10, Unit 1 on drawing conclusions. Okay, and we got our same paragraphs there. And also what it says here, working backward is often helpful. Look at what the question asked. Change the wording to fill in the blank statement. Blank can be concluded. Then find the most logical choice. So, I've mentioned this too, right? You can paraphrase to help you determine main ideas. That's also kind of falls in line with changing the wording. And then, so also, working backwards, I've mentioned this before, when reading in graduate school, you read the introduction, you read the conclusion, and that gets you a long way to understanding, longer articles and passages and things like that. So you can work backwards sometimes to draw a conclusion. That'll help. And then finally, our first question here on the quiz, what's the most logical conclusion to draw on the basis of the last paragraph? A, yeah, when oil prices rise, gas prices increase, right? That's the whole meaning of the last paragraph, right? So always make sure when you look at the question, you know what it's directed at. So oil prices directly result in gas prices increase. We can conclude that, right, using our other tools. So one is A. All right, and a new passage here. So separate classrooms for boys and girls. So we get a gist of what this passage is going to be about, right? So if schools shortchange girls, why is it surprising when the tests show that they're doing less well? It isn't just the PSATs, where 18,000 boys generally reach the top categories and only 8,000 girls do. While the gap has narrowed, boys also outscore girls on 11 of the 14 College Board achievement tests, and on the ACT exams, and on the SATs. It is possible to jimmy selection standards to make sure girls win more scholarships, but equal results don't count for much if those results are forced. Jimmy is a strange choice of words there. We talked about style and tone, right? But that's largely manipulating, is what Jimmy means in that case. So instead of declaring equality, society should be advancing it. The challenge isn't to get more scholarships for baton twirlers, but to get more baton twirlers to take up advanced mathematics. One place that happens is in girls' schools and women's colleges. Sometimes separate isn't equal, it's better. Changing the way teachers teach in co-ed schools, changing the textbooks to make sure they talk about women as well as men, educating parents about raising daughters, all of these things make sense, since most girls will be educated in co-ed classrooms. But we've been talking about them for a decade, and the problems of gender bias stubbornly persist. In the meantime, for many girls, single-sex education is working. The evidence, though scant, is promising. In Ventura, California, the public high school has begun offering an all-girls Algebra 2 course. The girls, one teacher says, think so little of their ability that the teacher spends her time not only teaching math, but also building self-confidence, repeatedly telling the girls that they're smart and that they can do it. And that's an article called Separate is Better by Susan Estrich in 1994. So what is the most logical conclusion to draw from the last paragraph there, paragraph 3? Is it A, separate classrooms have little impact on education, B, teachers spend too much time enhancing girls' self-esteem, or C, the evidence shown from the few schools that have offered all girls classes is promising, D, girls have less self-confidence when entering a co-ed math or science class after taking an all-girls class. What conclusion can we draw from that final paragraph?
A.
A. We're actually
C.
Yeah, there you go. C is in cat. So the evidence shown from the few schools that have offered all girls classes is promising. It's limited, as she says, but what we're seeing is some promise in that area. So C as a cat for number 2. And then our same passage here. So how are paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 connected? Is it A, paragraph 3? It's B, right? Paragraph 3 provides an example of the conclusion based on paragraph 2. So, paragraph 2, we're talking about what some, we're seeing, at all girls schools and women's colleges, better performance in, particularly like math and science. And then the evidence, we pare it down and we look, we narrow the lens, right? And we get an example, a single example from a Ventura, California school. So B as in boy for 3. Okay, and 4, same passage. So according to this passage, which conclusion best reflects the author's point of view? Math and science are more important for girls than boys. B, girls may do better in math and science if they learn in all-girl classrooms. C, girls deserve to win more scholarships based on standardized test scores. Or D, girls perform as well or better than boys on standard tests in math and science.
Either B or C.
It is B, right?
B. I got B highlighted, so B.
There you go. B as in boy, right? The whole thing, right? If we're thinking about the main idea and we're drawing a conclusion about what we read. So, if we wanted to start a phrase, in conclusion, girls may do better in math and science if they learn in all-girl classrooms. That's the whole gist of it, right? So B as in boy for 4. Our last question for the quiz part. What evidence from the passage best supports the author's conclusion about separate classrooms? So is it A, for many girls, single-sex education is working? B, the teacher spends her time not only teaching math, but also building self-confidence? C, equal rights don't count for much if those results are forced? D, changing the textbooks to make sure they talk about women as well as men, educating parents about raising daughters? So yeah, A, for many girls, sex education is working. So there is proof, right? That's what her evidence is. She's supporting her conclusion there. The rest don't directly, they don't engage that idea directly. Okay, so that's the last one for the quiz. Let's run through it real quick. The answer for 1 is A. 2 is C as in cat. 3 is B as in boy. 4 is also B as in boy. And 5 finally is A. Okay. All right, so we'll move over to the workbook. So again, making judgment based on information provided in the text or from inferences. So it may not always be explicitly stated, right? You're taking all the information you have available through inferences, through that range of tools, compare and contrast. So remember that an inference is an educated guess based on facts or evidence and on your own prior knowledge. Identify the important details of the passage and then use those details to make inferences and draw conclusions. So you got to kind of eliminate the noise, go to the important pieces, right? Just like the last one, it was about girls doing better in single sex education. So then you may find that different facts support different conclusions, but these conclusions can lead you to a larger conclusion about the whole. All right. And we're back on some countries pay more for gas. So out of the same article by Bill Marsh in 2008, different section. So gasoline in the United States is cheap. Not as cheap as American drivers would like, of course, and not as cheap as it is in Venezuela and other major oil producing countries where it is heavily subsidized. Compared to prices in most other industrialized nations, however, the American national average of $4 a gallon is a bargain. The chief reason for the disparity with the high-priced nations is taxation. Take away the taxes and the remaining gas price is similar from place to place. Yeah, so as I was saying, wasn't that, back 13 some years ago, we were dealing with some pretty hefty gas prices then as well. So our underlying part here is saying, from the information about gas prices in these sentences, you can conclude that gas in Venezuela is cheaper than gas in the United States, right? That's no jump. That's not a big leap, because it basically says not as cheap as American drivers would like, and not as cheap as it is in Venezuela. And then second, for our underlying passage down here, it says the sentence shows a cause and effect. You can draw a conclusion about gas taxes from this cause and effect relationship, right? Chief reason for the disparity, high price nations, is taxation. The reason for the cause is high taxes. The effect is high prices. Lots of tax, high prices. All right, so we'll start here on the workbook. And we have here to draw conclusions, you must make assumptions or educated guesses. If a topic or an author's purpose is unclear, read the text carefully and make logical assumptions based on what you read and on prior knowledge. So, it might not always be cut and dry, right? This is about your educated guess. This is about you making a clear assumption. So if it's not coming to you at first, you might need to slow down and reread the passage for some help. And our first question then, the most logical conclusions to draw about gas taxes in Venezuela is that they are A, national, not state taxes, B, lower than they are in the United States, C, pay for the same services as in the United States, D, do not affect gas prices because of subsidies. So it's
B.
B, yeah, B as in boy, they are lower than elsewhere. Okay. And again, with the same passage. So which is the most logical conclusion to draw from this passage? A, gasoline is in the United States averages $4 a gallon. The United States has the world's highest prices for gasoline. Gasoline in the United States is as cheap as it is in countries in which it is highly subsidized. Or D, the United States pays higher prices for gasoline than some countries, but pays less per gallon than others.
A.
So D is in dog, right? The United States pays higher prices for gasoline than some countries, less than others. And as it mentions, right, gas in the United States is cheap, maybe not as cheap as Venezuela. So from that too, you can conclude that it's pays higher prices for some, in some cases, not so much in others. D as in dog for 2. And now a section on working virtually. So it says, yes, working virtually has revolutionized the workplace, unshackling workers from nasty office vibes, bad feng shui, and the soul-crushing power of the cubicle. The butt-in-chair mandates of yore are ridiculous at a time when we collaborate across continents and carry around our office in our palms. That's why companies like Best Buy, Microsoft, and IBM have long encouraged employees to work wherever and whenever they want. It's the future, and it's great. Though the vast majority of employees adore the Nouveau Flex, there are those who are simply not wired that way. They feel socially unemployed. One executive headhunter in New Jersey, missed office life so much and got so depressed from working in his ratty sweats with unbrushed teeth that he started putting on a suit and tie every day before traipsing across his bedroom to his desk. Some people don't work well alone, says IBM's Director of Global Diversity, Ron Glover. They need to be engaged with others and close together so they can be supported and developed and performance managed. And then final paragraph, a recent study by Rensselaer Polytechnic Management Professor Tim Golden found that the greater the prevalence of teleworkers in an office, the less others in the office are apt to be satisfied with their jobs. The non-teleworkers tend to find the workplace less enjoyable, have fewer and weaker emotional ties to coworkers, and generally feel less obligated to the organization, Golden found. Such research is spurring managers to realize how vital it is to mitigate some of the adverse impacts of working remotely. According to Wright State University management professor Todd Dewitt, there are 4 reasons remote work arrangements flop: choosing the wrong people, improper communication, setting weak or unclear goals, and unproductive home and work environments. Think babies and dogs. That's why Hewlett-Packard now offers employees self-assessments they can take to see if they are cut out for the world of virtual work. Managers are also receiving coaching on how to deal with a largely invisible workforce. That's from businessweek.com article, Working Remotely or Remotely Working. So Michelle Conlin, 2008. So yeah, this whole idea of working remotely has been going on for quite a while now. And of course, we're all I'm taking advantage of working remotely. You're taking advantage of learning remotely. So we have some drag and drop boxes here, a little table to assemble. Reasons to encourage telecommuting on left, reasons to restrict telecommuting on the right. So we have 6 choices here. We're going to need 4. What would be a reason to encourage telecommuting? Any choices?
New technologies make telecommuting easier and more effective.
Yeah, right. So better technology makes it easier. And what will be another one? We just need one more here. How about block? Well, it looks good. What's a good reason or to encourage it?
People have co-workers all around the world.
Yep. So that's the other one, right? So we have new technologies make telecommuting easier. And, we basically have a 24-hour workday now, right? It's a global community out there. My wife talks to people in India for her job during the day while she's sitting at her desk. And I'm looking at her right now while she does her work. So people have coworkers all around the world. Being required to go into an office doesn't really make sense. And then finally, we need 2 reasons for restrictions. So
People are likely to become depressed when working alone.
People are likely to become depressed when working alone. Not so much.
People lack self-discipline.
It is
No.
difficult to manage employees when they are not in the office.
Yeah, this one. Employees who telecommute are less obligated to their companies.
Yeah. So the first here, it's difficult to manage employees when they're not in the office. So that's one of them.
Mhm.
All right, so it mentions that up here. And then, yeah, it's employees who telecommunicate are less obligated to their companies. So they don't feel as connected to their companies. There's not as much loyalty. So our 4 boxes here, right? So reasons to encourage should be new technologies make telecommuting easier. People have coworkers all around the world. And then reasons to restrict is it's difficult to manage employees when they are not in the office. And employees who telecommunicate are less obligated. All right, so we hit that. Get our green lights or green highlights. Number 4. Okay, and you'll probably notice right away, this is from the same article from Susan Estrich in 1994, separate is better. So we're going back to that idea about single sex education for women in particular. So women in math and science, right? Always note the title. 20 years ago, when I attended Wellesley College, an all-women's college, coeducation fever was gripping America. Yale and Princeton had just gone. Dartmouth went next. My freshman year, we were polled on whether we thought Wellesley should join the stampede. What did I know? I said yes. But now I know I was wrong, and I'm glad my vote didn't change anything. This year, 60% of the National Merit Scholarship finalists are boys because boys outscored girls on the preliminary scholastic assessment test, which determines eligibility for the scholarships. The test doesn't ask about sports. It does ask about math and science, though, and that's where the differences between boys and girls are most pronounced. The American Civil Liberties Union and the National Center for Fair and Open Testing filed a federal civil rights suit in February, charging that the test discriminates against women. The plaintiffs want more girls to get national merit scholarships. So do I. But I want to see girls earn them in schools that give them a fair chance. I didn't win a merit scholarship either, although if the fair test people had their way, I might have. My grades were near perfect, but I didn't take the tough math and science courses. I had different priorities. I started junior high as the only girl on the math team. By high school, I'd long since quit. Instead, I learned to twirl a baton, toss it in the air and catch it while doing a split in the mud or the ice. The problem wasn't the PSAT, but me and my school. Things have changed since then, but not as much as one would hope. The American Association of University Women did a major study in 1992 about how schools shortchange girls and conclude that even though girls get better grades, except in math, they get less from school. It's very funny because I just got my daughter's report card, and guess where she did the worst? It was math. She did really well, though. I can't complain. I'm not going to complain. It was one of the best report cards we've had from her. But anyway, so from the information in paragraph 2, what is the best conclusion to draw about why boys do better on the PSAT than girls do? Because boys excel at standardized tests. B, the tests are designed toward boys' interests. C, boys excel over girls in school courses and thus test better. Or D, the test is based heavily on math.
Okay.
D is in dog. Right. So just looking at paragraph 2, right? It's all about because boys outscore girls in the preliminary scholastic assessment test, which determine eligibility. And then we see here the test doesn't ask about sports. It does ask about math and science, though. And that's where the differences between boys and girls are most pronounced. So 4 is D as in dog. And our same passage for here. And we're asked, which statement best explains the author's conclusion about the National Merit Scholarship? A, the PSAT discriminates against girls. B, National Merit Scholarship should be based on grades, not PSAT scores. C, girls should have equal opportunities to do well on the PSAT, or D, priorities have changed so that national merit scholarships are awarded more fairly. So any thoughts there?
D.
B.
So C.
E.
Yeah. So, if you look, she's not, you can infer that she doesn't think that the PSAT is biased, right, or unfair towards girls. And as a result, the same thing is with the National Merit Scholarship. It's the fact that girls don't do well on the PSAT, and that's because, sort of drawing this thread out because of their skills in math. So she believes that equal opportunity to do well on the PSAT, and that equal opportunity is better math scores overall, right? So C, as in cat, for number 5. Okay, and then according to the passage, what conclusion can you draw about why the author is glad her vote did not change the structure at Wellesley College? Because the author was young and thoughtless as a student. B, the author believes in coeducation. C, the author believes that women thrive better educationally in a single-sex setting. Or D, the author believes that students have too much decision-making power.
C.
Yeah, C is in cat, right? At the very beginning there, it's, you have to, again, sort of think about the time frame. She was writing in 1994. She's talking about 20 years prior, where some of these colleges were going co-ed. So Yale and Princeton and Dartmouth all went co-ed. She happened to go to Wellesley, which was an all-women's school, and she thought, yeah, let's, when she was younger, she's thinking, let's change. And then as she aged, she's like, no. C, she believes that women thrive better educationally in a single-sex setting. And of course, that's the whole, argument, right, of this piece. The largest argument you can make about what she's saying here is that she believes that women thrive better in single-sex settings for education. Okay, and number 7, so what is the most logical conclusion to draw about the author's overall point of view in this passage? So the author believes that A, girls should get the same attention from their schools as boys do. B, boys get less attention in school than girls do. C, boys take standardized tests better because of special coaching in math. D, boys care less about testing and schooling than girls do.
A.
So here it's A. Girls should get the same attention from their schools as boys do. And that one probably, as far as test taking tips go, look at us in the terms of process of elimination, right? We know that boys don't get less attention in schools. That, that's not part of the problem. Boys take standardized tests better because of special coaching in math. We have no mention of that in the piece. And then boys care less about testing and schooling than girls do. Also, no mention of that. So through process of elimination, we can also determine that girls should get the same attention. So A. Okay, and a new passage here for number 8. This is from Up from Slavery. So, we got Booker T. Washington here speaking in 1901. So again, thinking about the title, The Speaker's Success. And it says, when I arose to speak, there was considerable cheering, especially from the colored people. As I remember it now, the thing that was uppermost in my mind was the desire to say something that would cement the friendship of the races and bring about hearty cooperation between them. So far as my outward surroundings were concerned, the only thing that I recall distinctly now is that when I got up, I saw thousands of eyes looking intently into my face. The first thing I remember after I had finished speaking was that Governor Bullock rushed across the platform and took me by the hand, and that others did the same. I received so many and such hearty congratulations that I found it difficult to get out of the building. I did not appreciate to any degree, however, the impression which my address seemed to have made until the next morning, when I went into the business part of the city. As soon as I was recognized, I was surprised to find myself pointed out and surrounded by a crowd of men who wished to shake hands with me. This was kept up on every street onto which I went, to an extent which embarrassed me so much that I went back to my boarding place. The next morning, I returned to Tuskegee. At the station in Atlanta and at almost all the stations at which the train stopped between the city and Tuskegee, I found a crowd of people anxious to shake hands with me. I very soon began receiving all kinds of propositions from lecture bureaus and editors of magazines and papers to take the lecture platform and to write articles. All right, so on the basis of the content in paragraph 1, what is the best conclusion to draw about the background for the author's desire to cement the friendship of the races? So A, the author is happy that race relations seem to be improving. B, the author is offended that the audience is segregated. C, the author is unconcerned about race relations. Or D, the author is satisfied that he was able to bring about cooperation between the races. A, yeah, he's looking out and seeing cooperation. So he's happy that race relations seem to be improving. A. Number 8 is A. Number 9, so on the basis of the information in the passage, what is the best conclusion to draw about the author's character? The author is a person who is A, forgetful, B, pessimistic, C, humble, D, arrogant. C, right? C, he is humble. And, you know, the best indication there is, right, he wanted to go back to his boarding place. Like, this was kept up on every street, right? He'd been shaking hands. He's like, finally, to an extent which embarrassed me so much that I went back to my boarding place. So he wasn't used to that attention, and he was humble. So C, as in cat, for number 9. And then here, so which statement from the passage best supports the conclusion about the author's character? A, when I arose to speak, there was considerable cheering. B, the first thing that I remember after I had finished speaking was that Governor Bullock rushed across the platform and took me by the hand, and the others did the same. C, I received so many and such hearty congratulations that I found it difficult to get out of the building. Or D, as soon as I was recognized, I was surprised to find myself pointed out and surrounded by a crowd of men who wished to shake hands with me. So this ties in with the last question, right? What speaks about his personal character?
C.
D as in dog. As soon as I was recognized, right? Here's the operative word. I was surprised. Right? I was surprised to find myself pointed out, surrounded by a crowd of men. All right. D is a dog, and our last one for the day and the week. So which is the most logical conclusion to draw about why the author received invitations from lecture bureaus and editors of magazines and papers? Because his speech was amusing, his speech was successful, his speech caused debate, his speech created racial unrest.
B.
B.
There you go. B, his speech was successful. And we'll run through them real quick here. All right, so 1 was B as in boy. 2 was D as in dog. 3 was our table. So reasons to encourage telecommuting. New technologies make telecommuting easier and more effective, and people have coworkers all around the world. So being required to go to an office does not make sense. And then reasons to restrict telecommuting. It is difficult to manage employees when they are not in the office, and employees who telecommute are less obligated to their companies. 3 is, oh, that was 3, I'm sorry. 4 is D as in dog. Moving on to talking about girls' education in single-sex classes. So 4 is D as in dog, 5 is C as in cat. 6 is also C as in cat. 7 was A. 8 is A. 9 is C. 10 is D as in dog. 11 is B. B is in boy. All right. So